The woman turned on the shower and started to wash her hair.
Hot showers.
She had her eyes closed for a few seconds as the soap bubbles stung her eyes.
You gotta put your
She
head
washed
down,
it
boo.
off and opened her eyes.
Oh,
revealing
there it
the
is.
shadowed figure of SCP-303
meaty
standing
and
on the other
teepee.
side of the curtain. The woman screamed and fell backwards.
Oh,
She sat on the
she
shower
keeled
floor,
over.
struck by an irrational fear, and was reported to have sobbed hysterically for 3 hours
Irrational
until 303 decided to leave. 303
Wow.
dematerialized, and
Look
the
at
woman
this
was able
thing.
to leave the shower and report the event to Foundation personnel.
Just torturing
The
her?
woman still suffers from paranoia to this day.
Yes.
Welcome back to SCP
If that thing
Overload,
would've been in
where
my
we
shower, I'd
bring
be
you
paranoid
Euclid
too.
class object
So it's a Euclid.
SCP-303.
Alright. Special
This creature was first made known to Foundation personnel in the summer of 2005.
2005.
SCP-303 was suddenly found on Site-65,
That thing is
despite no records of its existence or
ugly.
capture by Foundation agents. It appears likely that 303 was transported into the Foundation facility at the same time as another SCP object was taken in, or perhaps it was called in by
Okay.
an SCP object. Further analysis of the SCP objects on Site-65 is currently underway.
Okay.
As SCP-303 has not yet been known to travel beyond the boundaries of Site-65, the entire area of Site-65 is currently considered 303's containment area.
Okay, that's
All rooms in
interesting.
Site-65 are to be altered where possible so as to have two entrances separated by a distance of 10 meters or line of sight.
Is that to
Personnel
keep
are to be
it-
distributed evenly throughout the facility with
Okay.
available radio or intercom contact so that encounters may be resolved quickly.
Ah.
Personnel who witness SCP-303 are to be submitted for psychiatric evaluation immediately. SCP-303 is
it's got
described as a
mind games.
nude, sexless, emaciated humanoid figure with reddish-brown skin.
And a lot
Instead
of
of normal facial features, its head is
Ugh.
dominated by an extremely large mouth, which bears a set of oversized
Can you
human
imagine
teeth.
the
It
toothbrush
continually
bill?
vocalizes a wheezing noise
Toothpaste
loud
bill?
enough to be heard from the other side of
Wheezing.
most solid doors. There have been no recordings or visual footage of SCP-303's full body due to its ability to incapacitate nearby electronic devices and systems.
Okay.
SCP-303 will periodically materialize behind any closed door, hatch, or other entryway
Ugh.
barrier opposite a sentient observer, chosen by unknown means. On
Okay.
Site-65,
we don't know how
SCP-303
it
will then
chooses
remain
its
behind the
victims.
door for a certain amount of time, which may change in each case.
Okay.
Any individual attempting to open the door or barrier experiences intense, paralyzing fear that lasts until 303 dematerializes, either on its own or to avoid being directly seen by another observer.
So it
The
doesn't
source of
make
this
you
fear
wanna-
is not clear, but appears to be similar in nature to arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, and
All right.
ophidiophobia,
Very
the fear of
inherent,
snakes.
then.
Further analysis
It's like
suggests
something
that
that you can't
SCP-303 is not, in fact, purposefully inducing fear in the affected individuals.
It just happens.
SCP-303
It's
does
an
not allow
anomalous-
itself to come into direct visual contact with any observer,
Okay.
and has never allowed any one individual to view more than 10% of its form. When the door
Really?
or other entryway barrier is partially or completely transparent, SCP-303 will materialize in an orientation that leaves 10% or less of its body visible,
Oh.
or cause effects of fog or frost on the transparent
That's
surface to achieve the
weird,
same
dude.
effect. If SCP-303 is approached from a direction in which there is not a solid object or door-breaking line of sight, it will dematerialize before direct visual contact
So it
is
will
made.
never show you more than
Despite
10%.
SCP-303's great efforts to remain unseen, those who have been in its presence seem to recall its description clearly,
Okay.
although they admit to never actually seeing it with the naked eye. Witnesses claim to just know what SCP-303's appearance is.
So it
and
doesn't
this is
eat 'em or
peculiar
anything.
To researchers,
But all them
leading reason to
teeth,
believe 303
all
is
it does is
capable of
smile
tapping
at
into the
'em.
human mind. As SCP-303 has seemed to claim Site-65 as its territory, there have been numerous encounters with SCP-303 by Foundation staff members. The first ever encounter was recorded on the 2nd of June, 2005.
Hey,
Agent
man.
Marison was showering in her
My
private
birthday.
quarters bathroom when
Yeah.
she became aware of the presence of SCP-303 on the opposite side of the
Poor
shower
baby,
curtain.
just trying to take a
It
shower.
was wheezing extremely
that
loudly.
little finesse
Startled
going.
by the discovery, she
Wheezing.
accidentally
Can you
struck the
imagine
shower
wheezing
curtain,
outside
causing
of
it
your
to sway
shower from
outwards.
something like that?
The curtain partially wrapped around 303, revealing that it was less than half
Oh,
a meter
it
from the
wrapped
curtain,
it around like a
standing
little
erected
toad.
facing the shower. Agent Marison reports spending approximately the next 3 hours sobbing in the shower
nasty,
quietly
too.
as not to disturb
just watching
SCP-303.
her.
Agent Marison reported that the wheezing stopped very suddenly, at which point in time she was able to exit the shower. Foundation personnel were sent
Dang.
in to investigate the
This
bathroom
is
for
so
any signs of
strange,
303,
dude.
although no traces were found.
You would think something
For a
like
brief
that
period
would
of
try
time,
to
it was
eat
believed
people.
Agent Marison had lost her mind through her recent missions and encounter with SCP objects, and that perhaps SCP-303's existence was a mere hallucination. However, the second encounter with 303, reported by Agent Harley, proved this theory to be incorrect.
Okay, good.
Agent Harley encountered
So she
SCP-303
was-
inside the Site-65 second floor break room.
validated.
He was attempting to obtain coffee creamer from the counter cabinet when he heard loud wheezing emanating from the cabinet and was overtaken by overwhelming fear. Agent Harley later reported that 303 was huddled in the cabinet in the fetal position.
My mouth was stretched
Agent
like
Harley
that.
claimed to be
I
certain
would
of
be
this
like that,
information
too.
despite never actually opening the cabinet door. Later, when the cabinet was
Weird.
examined, one container of powdered coffee creamer was missing. This is the first recorded instance of SCP-303 removing an
took some
object from a
coffee
scene.
creamer?
3 days after Agent
What?
Harley's encounter, Agent
Maybe it needed some
Browen found
coffee
himself
creamer.
in the public bathroom.
I like
When he
cream in
felt
my coffee, too. I
303's
don't
presence
blame it.
behind him, Agent Browen felt the same paralyzing fear, the same rapid
This thing
heartbeat,
likes to sneak
and
up
knew
on
that
people
if
in
he
the
were to look up
bathroom.
at the mirror in front of him, he would see 303 standing behind him in the mirror's reflection. Agent Browen remained frozen in this position for only 26 minutes before SCP-303 decided to leave.
26
Although
minutes
there are
just
no
being
reports
frozen.
of SCP-303 ever harming an individual purposefully,
That is-
there have been cases
Oh,
of inadvertent murder.
It has.
On the 18th
Oh
of
my.
February 2015, Dr. Johnson was discovered dead from dehydration in a second-floor storage room
Oh
on
my
Site-65.
God.
It is estimated that Dr. Johnson spent up to 5 days in the storage room before being
5
discovered.
days
Small
scared
4-meter by
and
4-meter
never drank
decompression
water
chamber
and
separated
died.
the storage room from the adjoining hallway.
You poor thing, dude.
SCP-303 occupied the decompression chamber for the duration of Dr. Johnson's isolation in
Oh
the storage
my
room,
God.
disallowing entry from either direction and making it impossible for Dr. Johnson
So
to
does it
leave.
mean them
This case is
harm?
giving question
It
to the
has
extent
to.
of paralyzing fear that SCP-303 is capable of emitting. Test log 303-A was therefore initiated to analyze the strength of this paralyzing fear.
Yeah.
A team consisting of Dr. Armando, researcher Lavington, 4
Some
security
security.
personnel, and 4 D-class personnel were assigned to be dispatched to any reported incident of SCP-303's
Okay.
materialization in order to immediately perform on-site testing.
So they're trying to
These
figure
logs
out
took
how
place at the door
strong
to room
this fear is that
84B
it
from the
causes.
first floor hallway.
A variety of
303 was
people.
reported to be within room 84B.
Okay. Send them
These
in.
are researcher Lavington's entries for test log 303-A.
All right. Let's see.
March 2nd, 2015, 2 a.m. We have been told SCP-303 is now residing in room 84B.
Let's go in.
The
Let's
team has
check it
been
out.
dispatched to the room for testing. 5 a.m. One male D-class personnel, D-3031, was ordered to open the door to room 84B and threatened that he would be transferred to SCP-3288 duty for noncompliance.
Okay.
He refused, citing extreme fear. Myself, Dr. Armando, and the others were stationed a few meters away from the door of 84B
All right.
and felt no feeling of fear.
Weird.
However, D-3031 seemed intensely afraid and still refused orders made by Dr. Armando.
That is weird. So
6
does it
a.m.
channel
After an hour of
that feeling
refusals,
to a specific
D-3031 was
individual?
told he would be terminated on the spot if he refused to open
Oh my
room
God.
84B. He still refused, claiming that if he were to do that, SCP-303 would take him to the beyond. After a continued 10 minutes of denying
Wow.
orders, D-3031 was terminated on the spot by security personnel.
What?
10 a.m. One female
For
D-class
D-class,
personnel,
dude.
D-3032, that had witnessed the termination
Rock
of
in a hard
D-3031
place.
was ordered to open the door and threatened that she would be terminated on the
Okay.
spot for noncompliance.
Oh, they
She
did
refused, claiming that if she opened the door, that SCP-303 would once again take
it.
her to the
Tears,
beyond.
boy.
Dr. Armando was
So
visibly
take it
shaken
to
by
the
this claim
beyond.
and seemed to project signs of fear himself.
Okay.
I called the order for D-3032 not to be terminated. 1 p.m.
Weird.
After much deliberation, the following procedure was agreed upon by myself and Dr. Armando.
So the fear is
One
too
male
strong for them
D-class
to go
personnel, D-3033, was given one combat knife by security personnel and ordered to stab D-3032 continuously until she opened the door.
in. Oh my
After 2
God.
hours of the procedure, D-3032 died from blood loss. D-3032 made no attempt to open the door.
God,
Entries for
dude,
test
can you
log
imagine?
303-A. It appears SCP-303 has claimed room 84B as its
Very
own. It
strong
has so far
fear,
disallowed
yo.
any personnel entry to the room since February of 2015.
Weird. Nobody will go
It
in.
leaves periodically to acquire Foundation property, which is then moved into room 84B. To this day,
So it
the
goes
following
for
list
stuff.
describes all non-classified items taken by SCP-303. 1 cryotube, 3 sets of standard Foundation surgical equipment,
Okay.
2 D-class research cadavers, 1 gasoline-powered generator, a variety of chemicals, including large quantities
So
of
this thing is just
tryptophan,
collecting
phenylalanine, and tyrosine, among others.
I wonder how
One
what this
container
has
of
to
powdered
do-
coffee creamer.
The
In addition
coffee
to this,
creamer.
a number of classified materials have been obtained by SCP-303.
It's doing some
Staff
experiments.
are
I
still
wonder-
attempting to determine what specific purposes 303 may have for
Right.
these materials.
I wonder what it was
303's
doing
overall
with
intent is
096 in the
unknown.
last video.
Whether or not 303 is a threat is unknown.
Right.
The reason behind 303's habitation of Site-65 is also unknown.
Yeah.
As
Well, I
of now,
just
any
chose that.
encounters with 303 must be reported immediately without hesitation.
Well, that's
What
when the
did
fear
you
lets
think
up
of
at
that
least.
SCP case? What would you do if you encountered SCP-303?
I mean, the same thing as everybody else did, cower in fear. If you took repeated knife wounds to open a door that this thing was behind and you wouldn't go because you get this fear of it taking you to the beyond, first of all, what is the beyond and how bad can it actually be? Is it worth being stabbed to death with a knife? Oh, y'all, but this was a really, really good one. Listen, make sure to check out SCP Overload and a couple other SCP videos that I think you'll like. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time.